बृहस्पतिः शन्नो विष्णुरुक्रमः नमो ब्रह्मणे नमस्ते वायो त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्मासि त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्म वदिष्यामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः अहं यश्छन्दसामृषभो विश्वरूपः छन्दोभ्योऽध्यमृतात् सम्बभूव समेन्द्रो मेधया आस्पृणोतु अमृतस्य देवधारणो भूयासं शरीरं मे विचर्षणं जिह्वा मे मधुमत्तमा कर्णाभ्यां भूरि विश्रुवं ब्रह्मणः कोशोऽसि मेधया पिहितः श्रुतं मे गोपाय ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः अहं वृक्षस्य रेरिव कीर्तिः पृष्ठं गिरेरिव ऊर्ध्वपवित्रो वाजिनीव स्वमृतमस्मि द्रविणगुंसवर्चसं सुमेधा अमृतोक्षितः इति त्रिशङ्कोर्वेदानुवचनम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः आप्यायन्तु मम अङ्गानि वाक्प्राणश्चक्षुः श्रोत्रमथो बलमिन्द्रियाणि च सर्वाणि सर्वं ब्रह्मोपनिषदं माहं ब्रह्म निराकुर्यां मा ब्रह्म निराकरोत् अनिराकरणमस्तु अनिराकरणं मे अस्तु तदात्मनि निरतेय उपनिषत्सु धर्माः ते मयि सन्तु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः वाङ् मे मनसि प्रतिष्ठिता मनो मे वाचि प्रतिष्ठितम् आविराविर्म एधि मेदस्य म आनीस्थः श्रुतं मे मा प्रहासीः अनेनाधितेन अहोरात्रान् सन्दधामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारमवतु वक्तारम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः भद्रं नो अपि वातय मनः ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येम अक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैस्तुष्टुवागुंसस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः यो ब्रह्मानं विदधाति पूर्वं यो वै वेदांश्च प्रहिणोति तस्मै तगुंहदेवमात्मबुद्धिप्रकाशं मुमुक्षुर्वै शरणमहं प्रपद्ये ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Panah Punah Punaha Narayanam Padma Bhuvam Vasishtam Shaktim Cha Tatputra Parasharam Cha Vyasam Shukam Gaudapadam Mahantam Govinda Yogindra Mathasya Shishyam Shri Shankaracharya Mathasya Padmapadam Cha Hastamalakam Cha Shishyam Tam Totakam Vartikakaram Anyan Asmat Gurun Santato Manatosmi. Okay, so hope you got my email and also the copy of the PDF of this Vaiyasika Adhyaya Mala that I had sent to you. Just a few words regarding that before we start. This is a book that is taught by many acharyas when a full review of all of the Shankara Bhashya is not in the cards, not in the right way to, not possible to do because of time constraints or something. Ideally, one should really go through the Shankara Bhashya and with some further commentaries from Ratna Prabha and others. And I think I've shown you the 5-volume book that we have. And quite frankly, I think I've only gone through maybe a little more than half of it, and whenever my time permits, and I have not done it recently, but I've done all about half of it from that book. But in the meantime, what our acharyas say is that if you have limited time and opportunity, then you should resort to this book called Vaiyasika Adhyaya Mala. And so this is also highly regarded. So highly regarded, in fact, that if you go to the, which I just happened to go recently, to the web page of the Sringeri Matha in South India, and there they have all of the publications that I would not say they would recommend, but they publish it and they highlight it. And in one of those, this one, Vaiyasika Adhyaya Mala, is also there along with the Shankara Bhashya. And so it is highly regarded. It was explained by Swami Satyananda Ji, who is one of the translators into Hindi of this book, that Sri Bharati Tirtha, who is the author of the Vaiyasika Adhyaya Mala, actually based it on the Shankara Bhashya. So it's not as though it's an independent book by itself, it's really more of a consolidation. And it's a very beautiful thing that he has done. What he has done is that out of the 555 sutras, which is 191 adhikaranas, he has written 2 verses per adhikarana. 2 verses per adhikarana, and that is given in the one that I sent you. And so there are 2 verses for each adhikarana. So he says there are a concise definition of what the topic is, and the 2 verses, very interesting how beautifully it has done. The 2 verses per adhikarana means one of them is Purva Paksha and the other one is Siddhanta. So what that means is that for each topic, sometimes he would even give the title to the adhikarana in the form of what he calls sandeha. Sandeha means doubt. So what it means is, why are we talking about this topic? What is the doubt? Because if someone is very clear and unopposed or something, then we know it what it is. We don't need to talk about it. So the very fact that we are talking about a topic means there is some sandeha, some doubt is there. So he sometimes gives that. Then to explain what the sandeha is, he gives the purva paksha, what the doubter, or in some case the opponent. It could be a doubter or it could be an opponent. What is the view? This is the first verse. The second verse is Siddhanta. This is how we feel. This is what our fact is. So this is 2 verses for each Siddhanta. So he has given that. So anyway, to close off that, so Swami Dayanand, when he would teach this after the course, initially in the PhD course, of course, we went through Shankara Bhashya for the 4 initial sutras, which we have now done. So I think we have completed that part of it. But any study after that would be based on this book, Vaiyasika Nyayamala. Why? Because it is much shorter, much more concise, and essentially captures the same thing that Shankara Bhashya has done. Shankara Bhashya, of course, is much more detailed, goes into a number of, and it has a different purpose. So Adi Shankara was born at a time when, from time to time, there are actually some questions about the Vedic thinking and so on. This has all happened from this historical fact. As you know, King Ashoka, he was really, he could see the horrors of the wars, and he said, no more, because at least in the Bhagavad Gita, as you know, Arjuna was said that, listen, if you find that there are people who are abusing the dharma, they are doing the wrong things, then to turn your back to them and accept them is not right. You have to confront it and fight it. And if you lose your life in the process of doing it, that's part of what Ishvara's glory is. Because you will have another chance next life to do it. It's not that big a deal. But Ashoka, not understanding it, he says, we cannot really do any violence of any kind, even if it is the violence against the wrongdoers. So let us just accept the fact that it is something which should not be condoned. So he then followed Buddhism. So the Buddhism came up, and similarly Jainism and so on and so forth. But to resurrect the Vedic thinking, Adi Shankara was a shining glory of that time. Whenever he was, there's some controversy as to which year, but I think that he is now accepted. It will be in the 8th century AD that Shankara was born. So Shankara had a much wider objective to fulfill, which is to take on all of the doubters, including Buddhism, Jainism, and others at that time. Those names may have been gone by now. And he wanted to paint a picture which is a very comprehensive reply to all of the doubters. Okay? So naturally the canvas that he was painting on is much bigger. Here is, on the other hand, they did not really spend that much time in looking at everything, and it was just basically done to reaffirm the same message that Shankara also gave, but the same message was given in a succinct way. And so that is how this book came about. And Swami Dayanand Ji, whenever he would teach, and I was a student in two of such classes, as I mentioned to you in my email, he would use this book. So when I was reviewing this last week as to how I should do it, I felt this is the way I would also adopt. So this is the reason why I'm just a justification for using this book. This book is I haven't spent that much time. I was very lucky that I had a copy of this book. Here it says my name, Piercy, July of 81. So this is when I got the book. And later on, this book itself became very useful when I was attending the courses, especially the one course that I distinctly remember in my mind is the one that was started on 4th of February. I saw my notes. It's here. I have that in front there. February of 2002. And there I was very fortunate to be invited to a Guru Bhai union in Anaikatti, and it was a remarkable get together because in the audience were something like 60, 70, maybe 80, excuse me, Swamis and some lay people like myself, but who had all completed the 2.5-year course. Swami Viditatmananda ji was not there. And Swami Tattvavidananda was, I don't know whether he was invited because he had not completed a 2.5-year course with Swamiji, even though I think he was given Diksha by Swamiji. So I didn't see him, I don't remember seeing him there. But Swami Paramarthananda and a lot of the other bigger Swamis in India were all in the audience. And I was also invited. Funny story was sitting there. It was so interesting. So the first day, in fact, I'll show it to you. So on the first day, we were all sitting there, and one of the brahmacharis, was going around handing a copy of a Xerox copy of Vaiyasika Nyayamala. So this is the same book that we are studying, page 37. And this is the other one. There were two passes. Yeah. So he was passing it. When he came to me, he did not give it to me. He skipped over me. So I had sort of put my hand out like this, but he went past me. Why? This is interesting to see. So this brahmachari, who had obviously been studying, must have been a student of Swamiji and so on, felt that I don't deserve it because I'm not a Swami. Even though I was wearing kurta pajama and so on, and he might have thought because of my fair skin that I'm not even an Indian. So he didn't want to give this to me. It was so interesting. And the Acharya there, Swami Siddhabodhananda, who was a good friend of mine, and we both went to PRC together and so on. So when I told him, he says, I have got to talk to that guy. I cannot believe he did such an insult to you. Anyway, these are the 2 copies that he gave it to me. I still have that with me. Anyway, that was a very, very beautiful 7 days. And it was interesting. I was mentioning this in the Milpita's class about 3-4 years ago. And I still remember so well that when I explained the fact that one of the verses one of the adhikaranas actually, not verses, but adhikarana, is the Antaryami Adhikarana, which we are going to do either today or next time, most probably next time. Gajananam is a student of ours, many of you know him. He said that, can you please take that up for us? Because I told him that this is what we studied in the Anaikati in 2002. So I told him, well, one of these days we will do it. I'm not sure when. And I've talked about the Antaryamitvam, but now I will actually go through this in some detail with the notes that Swamiji had taught us. And that was a great memory in my mind. It really gave me a better insight into the role of Ishvara, our dependence on things, who is the Antaryami, what is going on. It was a great insight, although since then I've thought even more and it's become clearer to me even now. But anyway, that 2002 was a very good experience for me to try to see the understanding straight from Swami Dayanandji when all these luminaries were also in the same room. So wonderful. And just to on the side, I remember walking up to Swami Paramarthananda and said, Swamiji, I introduced myself. And he says, oh, no, I've heard of you. And I said, Swamiji, I've heard a lot about you. Can I just come by and just talk to you for a while? So he says, oh, wonderful, that'd be great. So I went to his place where he was staying before the day started, I think the next day. And we spent a good half hour to an hour. And this is when I remember he was telling me that he was saying, are you teaching? And so I said, Swamiji, I was teaching for about 10 years and then I had a heart problem and I had surgery done. And so we had to interrupt it and I have not gotten back to it. He says, get back to it right away. And he says, in my life, the real clarity came when I started teaching. He says, there's something really wonderful that happens where you have mature adult people sitting in front of you and you are trying to convince them. Sometimes you can fool your own mind and say, oh yeah, I understand this. But if the students don't understand it, they will tell it to you. They will ask you a question. We can't do that in this online kind of a thing. But otherwise you can have, I could see from our Peter's days that you would have a kind of a quizzy look on your face. I'm not sure and then I could get an idea that perhaps I need to go around and explain it some other way. In the process of doing so, your own clarity becomes better. This is what he was telling me. He says, absolutely. And I also advise you that really at some point in time, if you want to test your own knowledge, then please try to tell it to someone else who is interested. You cannot find anybody from the street, but if someone is interested, then with all earnestness and sincerity and with the blessings of Ishvara, teach. So I still remember just from that 2002, all these experiences, and it was all done when we were studying the Vaiyasika Nyayamala, and so we will begin to do so. Okay, right, so here's what we will do. One thing I would point out that, let's see. So on on the copy that I gave you, and so in fact, before I get to it, I just wanted to say one other thing. If you are interested in studying Vaiyasika Nyayamala, then I find in the very short time that I spent this week, the copies are available on the net. In fact, the one that I sent you, this is really a beautiful thing. I remember this, this is from about, I think, roughly 10, 12 years ago that I found this out. So this is when Google, this was a news that I saw a long time ago. Google had done a great thing where they had digitized many of the books that were in the libraries but had not been published publicly for everybody to see. So this is very interesting. So this book, if you look at the first few pages of it, and there is a faint, very faint, you will say Google, digitized by Google. This book was in a New York City library. I don't know if that's the only copy or maybe multiple copies, I don't know, but it's remarkable that somehow it ended up in the New York Public Library. So Google digitized it and it was made available to the public. So if you go to the net, you will find that this is a book that has been translated into a number of Indian languages. Some of the languages that I could not even identify whether it was Tamil or Kannada or Telugu. I cannot tell the difference between the scripts and so on. So they are available. So what I'm saying is that if you're interested, you can actually look into it and possibly just find it in the net itself. This book with Satyananda Ji's Hindi commentary, I have not seen on the net, but I am sure that it's available. So for those of you that are Hindi speaking, if you want to really get a copy of this, and I will highly recommend it because Swami Satyananda Ji has done a marvelous job of very clearly translating the Sanskritam. Okay, so you can do that. I could not find an English version, not to say that it's not available, excuse me, but I could not find it. Okay, but for those of you that don't know any of these other languages, on the coverage that we will do, you don't need to, because I will explain all the key verses that go into it. Anyway, so that's just an introduction to the book itself. So one thing you will find in this book, which I really recommend that you do, is to go to the page, and I think the page numbers are not starting with 1, 2, 3, 4. There's a number of pages that don't have a number, but you will see in the copy that I sent you, there is a page which has a very long Sanskrit compound word, and it goes like this: Vaiyasika Nyayamalayam Adhikaranam Anukramanika. Anukramanika means a list, basically. A list of all the adhikaranas in the Vaiyasika Nyayamala. It has 4 pages in it, and so you kindly look into that, and if you want to make a copy of that, I think you please do. I did not make a copy. What I can show you is in this book, Swami Satyanandaji's book, it starts like this. So this is one page. It's 4 pages. 2, 3, and then 4. So this is a list of all the adhikaranas, 191 adhikaranas. And then after that it starts. Vaiyasika Nyayamala. And it starts with Athato Brahma Jigyasa from the very beginning. But I think that I would recommend that you, if you know a little bit of Sanskrit, is to make a copy of, or just look at this Anukramanika. Adhikarana Anukramanika means a list of all the adhikaranas. And so here, what you will see is, as you know, as I mentioned to you last week, that the entire Brahma Sutra is segmented into 4 chapters called Adhyayas. And each chapter has 4 padas or quarters. So they are altogether 16 padas. And each pada has multiple adhikaranas. Okay? This is what I had mentioned to you. So this list here actually goes through very well on explaining this. So this one is Prathama Adhyaya, first Adhyaya, Prathama Pada, first Pada. And it goes into 1 to 11. There are 11 adhikaranas in this Pada. And 4 of them we have already studied. Excuse me. 4 of them we've already studied. This is interesting. Brahmano vicharyatvam athato brahma jigyasa. So he has given a commentary on what is it all about. Vicharyatvam means that thinking about, wanting to know about Brahman. So this is the first one. Brahmano vicharyatvam. Then the second one is Brahmano lakshanam, as we have said. Janmadyasya yataha lakshana vakya. Third one is Brahmano vedakartritvam. This is number 3. Vedakartritvam. It is done explained in the Vedas. And the fourth one is Brahmano Veda Ekam Eva Ekameyatvam. That the entire Veda is Samanvaya. It talks about the first 4. After that it is Vedantanam Brahma Ekaparatvam, Vedantanam Brahma Vyavasanam, etc. etc. Anyway, so this is a glossary of all the adhikaranas that this book has. Okay? Alright. So then it starts on page 4 of this book that I gave you, where if you go there you will see that the first verse, the first sutra, Atato Brahma Jigyasa, is on page 4. Page 4. And so then the entire pada takes up I think 12 or 13 pages of the book. Then you will see, and this is where we will start. I'm just giving you the background on it. We haven't started on the main teaching yet, which we will do in a very short time. Then you will see that on the page 16 of this book, which I did make a copy, and so this is page 16, it ended the first pada. And there it says, Adhikaranani 11. So there were 11 adhikaranas on the first pada. How many sutrani were there? 31. Because there are multiple sutras for each adhikarana, except for the first four. Because in the first four there is one sutra, one adhikarana. But from 5th to the 11th, there are multiple sutras. So altogether there's 31. So with this, the first pada is over. Okay. Now we begin. So I'm not going to go over the rest of the sutras in the first pada. We will start with, because I'm just giving you a sampling, really. It is not a complete, I'm not promising you a complete review of it, just a sampling. But enough of a sampling that does two things. One is it gives a comprehensive look at the scope of all the Brahma Sutras, number one, comprehensive look at the scope. The second one is, I hope that we can go over how each topic is analyzed. Okay? What is the method of, it's kind of like, when you go to the Supreme Court briefings, how do they do it? What is the structure of the briefings? If you know that, you can go to any topic that you are interested in. I would imagine if you are a law student going to a law college, they will ask you, please analyze the Supreme Court briefings on the following topics and discuss it and see what you get out of it. And so you can only do that if you have had some practice in understanding how to analyze the briefings. So my second objective, in addition to giving a sampling of the overall scope, is to enable us to see exactly how each sutra and each adhikarana is analyzed. If you do that, then you are on your own, because you have a number of different, you have different interests, even though you are interested in studying Vedanta, but how deeply, it all depends on you. So if you are interested in going in on your own and doing it, the methodology we will employ would help you. So that's the second objective. So those are the two objectives what I have. One is to sample the entire scope, and the second one is to understand the way Swami Tirtha, Swami, all the acharyas, how they analyze the vakyas. Okay, so this is what I would remember. All right. So now let us begin the second pada. So we will take that up. So now an introduction to the second pada. Okay. So, as you know, I had mentioned to you that the first Adhyaya, first of the 4 chapters, is called Samanvaya Adhyaya. The Samanvaya Adhyaya means, Samanvaya, as you know, you are very familiar with that word by now, I hope. Samanvaya means consistency, tatparya nishchaya, finding out what is the essence of it. And the essence is one, not many. So when you distill it down, it should just have a singularity to it. What is that singularity of purpose? This is what is called samanvaya. So even in the Bhagavad Gita, even though we have talked about this, there are so many different topics. There is karma yoga, bhakti yoga, there is upasana, all kinds of things and so on. So is the Bhagavad Gita a compilation of many topics? No. Bhagavad Gita, even though it has many topics, all point to only one thought, which is there is identity between Ishvara and Jiva. In fact, Jiva is none other than Ishvara itself, a separate feeling that I am just a small person is due to ignorance. It is not the truth. The truth is that each one of us is a complete free being that was never born. And it is really nothing but the very nature of Brahma. That is Brahma. This is a very important thing for us to see. And in fact, I would just spend a little bit more time on this just to make sure that that underlines the way the analysis is done. So the Samanvaya Adhyaya is really the key Adhyaya. And that overall understanding is an important one, which should be kept in mind as we analyze each sutra, each adhikarana. And what that is, and this is really our objective of understanding. So, this is what is called Eka Ishvara Vada. There is one person in the whole creation is one person. It's something we need to really wrap our minds around. It's not multiple people working together. There is no sense of incompleteness. The whole creation is the expression of one person, Ishvara. That one person or Brahman. And the nature of the one person is it always has been and always will be Satyam Jnanam Anantam. There is no question of its beginning, no question of of dying, no question of change. It is the same thing. And it is really a non-understanding of it that makes us think of plurality. And so multiplicity and plurality and duality is an intermediate step that needs to be understood. We will go over this in our second class today. It's called the mind's eye. We'll look into this a bit more detail. But non-duality is a viewpoint that has a better understanding of what duality means. There is no multiplicity in the world. There's only one person. The multiplicity comes in if I don't understand that there is only one person and I look upon myself as a separate person from everybody else, which is okay. We're not stupid. Because we are all working intelligently and trying to figure out exactly where I fit into the whole picture. What am I supposed to do? All of that is very obvious. But this is just an intermediate stage. The final stage is there's only one thing. Here, probably the one lingam, one method of understanding, lingam, Shiva lingam, is there is only one conscious entity called Brahman. So when you say I, that I is, you may think it is I, the separate individual. I'm moving around, I'm looking, and so on. And then you are also looking, you are listening, I'm talking. So it appears that the eyes are separate, but there is only one. Only one. The whole creation is just nothing but Brahman. It is the consciousness. And we need to wrap our minds around it, understand it. Initially, just have the Shraddha, accept it for the time being, work towards this vision, and then finally own it, be clear about it. This is what is called Samanvaya. And Brahma Samanvaya, Brahma Sutra, the whole creation, the whole Ishvara, Shiva, is nothing but Brahman. One big person, unlimited person. This is the meaning of the word Brahman, Brihat. As you know very well, Brihat means big. And the big is not a quality. It is the noun. Big. You cannot say how big. Because bigness depends on, if it's a quality, it depends upon a noun. Like a big house, a small airplane, big rat. All of those sizes, bigness and smallness is a quality. But here the word Brahman means big, means the noun itself. How big? Unlimited. Unlimited in time, unlimited in space, unlimited by any vastu. Unlimited. This is only one person in the whole creation. And that one person is you. Don't go looking around someplace else. Where is that person? It has to be you. Not you, the one which is part associated just now with the particular body, mind experience, but you, the conscious entity. And everybody else, the same conscious entity. I know. You're listening, you're saying, I know, I'm listening. I'm talking, I know. Knowledge. The conscious entity, I. This is Brahman. So therefore, now we can say, this is to be kept in mind really as you study Brahma Sutra. So it's not Brahma Sutra, 550 verses, this, that, or the other, and so on. What it means is, the entire study of Brahma Sutra should make it clear there's only one entity in the whole creation. Not even in the one entity as the whole creation, which is Brahma. Satyam Jnanam Anantam. Satchidanandaha. Asti Bhati Priyam. So, therefore, any of the sutra discussions point this out specifically. So you will see in the methodology that people will say, no, there is also pradhanam, as the Sankhya Vadas say. Pradhanam is in the modern way of looking at nature. So the Prakriti belongs to the nature. They have a different way of looking at it, which is not correct, but they have a way of looking at it. So this whole Sankhya philosophy is that there are two things going on. One is nature, how it evolves. The other one is the person, which is a conscious person. And the conscious person is different from the nature. And so you have to understand that conscious person needs to understand that they are independent of nature. If you do, it is moksha. We say, wait a second. Are you saying that the nature is an independent entity apart from the conscious person? They say yes. So we said no. That's wrong. That's wrong. Because that doesn't make any sense, because the conscious person must be infinite. And so this is where the Satya, Mithya all comes in and so on. Anyway, so the point is that the entire Brahma Sutra is a method to reinforce, clarify, there's only one person, which is Brahma. And so in many of these, as we will see in today's, we still have enough time to at least look into the one such adhikarana, where people will say, no, this belongs to nature, it belongs to a jiva. The Vedas are also saying that there is also a jiva and there is a nature, there is pradhana and so on. We say, no. It is saying it is nothing but Brahman alone. It may use different languages and so on and so forth. We're talking of languages, so now we can see what they say about the padas. So this is how Vedavyasa in his wisdom had segmented the various parts of the Veda Sutras, of Brahma Sutras. So the first pada versus the second and the third pada. Let's just look at the padas. Okay? The first pada is but it is described as Spashta Brahma Linga Vakyani. The second and the third padas are called Aspashta Brahma Linga Vakyani. First one is Spashta Brahma Linga Vakyani, and the second and the third are called, and we haven't seen the fourth one, we will see that later, called Aspashta Brahma Linga Vakyani. Now what does this mean? The commentators all point out that the first padas are a very clear, specific idea about the description of Brahman. Spashta means clear, very clear. Aspashta means not very clear, but still the same. I can give an example. Supposing you are, someone is discussing a person. They say that, there is There is anything. Let's just say that you're discussing a president of United States. So you were saying Biden, and so when Biden went there, and this is the history of Biden when he was the vice president. So you are specifically talking about Biden, and so this is called Spashta Linga Vakyani. Spashta Biden Linga Vakyani. All the sentences that point to, you may not use the word Biden in every language, every sentence, but it is very clearly you're talking about Biden. It's like you're reading a book on Biden. But suppose you don't utter the word Biden, but you still refer to his life in some way. Life is very difficult, and his son got killed in the war, and so supposing somebody comes in and in the middle of the conversation and is listening to all the words but doesn't know who it refers to, but it refers to the same person. The whole topic is nothing but Biden, with something like this. So the pada number 1 is Pashta Brahma Linga Vakyani. Pada number 2, which we are going to study now, is Aspashta Brahma Linga Vakyani. So those are 2 important words that you should be familiar with if you're studying Sanskritam, because they appear as part of the technical language on how things are called. So this is how the padas are separated. Okay, having said all that, let's actually start with the second pada now. First pada, we have already done 4 of them out of the 11 adhikaranas, so I think we will not go through the rest of them. Now let's go to the second pada. The second pada on this book, the Vaiyasika Nyayamala, starts on page 16. Page 16. So I don't know if you have a copy of that in front of you, but doesn't matter. It starts on the word on. So I actually made a copy of that page just for myself. See, my page numbers are different on this Hindi translation, because it has some translation also along with it. It goes to a different page. But on this one that I sent you, it is on page 16. So he says, all right, so in this second pada, he says, Atha Prathama Adhyayasya Dvitiya Padaha. Okay, for those of you that are studying the Sanskrit. Prathame Brahmanaha eva Manomayatvadi Adhikarane Sutrani. So he says the first adhikarana of the second pada is Manomayatvadi, which we will study in a minute. Anyway, so there are how many sutras here? Number 1, Sarvatra Prasiddha Upadeshat, which we will study. The second one is Vivakshita Guna Upapattescha Anupapatteshtu na Shariraha Karmakartra Vyapadeshatcha Shabda Visheshat Smritescha Arbaka Kaukastvat Yadyapi. Sorry, turned the wrong page. Deshacha neti neti na nityacha tveva vyomavaccha samyoga prapti iti chetna vaishishyat. So there are 8 sutras. In the first adhikarana, right? So we are starting the second pada. In the second pada, there are 8, in the second pada, the first adhikarana, so let's go to our list. So in the Prathama Adhyaya Dvitiya Pade, which I'm starting now, there are 7 adhikaranas. And the first adhikarana is called Brahmanaha eva manomayatvam. So this we will study in a little bit more detail today. What does it mean? Brahmana eva manomayatvam. Then the second verse is Ishwarasya atritvam. The third one is Jiva Brahmanoho eva guha pravishtatvam. The fourth one is Brahmana eva akshikatatvam. The fifth one is the one that we will spend more time on, which I mentioned before. Parameshwarasya eva antaryamitvam. Then the sixth one is Parameshwarasya eva bhutayonitvam. And the last one is Parameshwarasya eva Vishwanaratvam. Vaishwanaratvam. And so briefly what it means is interesting, that when the Vedas refer to many aspects of our life, Manomayaha. What do you mean by Manomayaha? Who is the Manomayaha? This is the one we are going to study. This one, and then we will jump to Antaryamitvam. Definitely in the next class, not today. Even Manomayatvam we may not be able to finish. So, who is the Manomayatvam? It says Brahmanaha eva Manomayatvam. It is not the Jiva, it is in fact the Brahman. Then Ishwarasya eva Atritvam. Atritvam means the one who consumes, one who eats. Who is the eater? So when you say, this is going to be remarkable just to go through all of this. When you say, I ate, who ate? Who is this I that ate? This will be discussed. And the answer in all cases is Brahman or Ishvara. It's one and the same. All cases this will end up with. And this is where we all have differences. How can we say the Ishvara is eating? I am the one who is eating. Anyway, I will go into all of that. Then Jiva Brahmanoho eva guha pravishtatvam. We'll go into that. Then Brahmanaha eva adhigatatvam. Then Antaryami. This is the one that I think we will exemplify. It's not as though it's something unique. It is only one of the many. But we will spend a little bit more time in exemplifying the way these things are analyzed and how the answer is given. So, Parameshwarasya eva antaryamitvam. So this is how these 7 different adhikaranas are there in the second pada. And I think we will probably go over 2 of the adhikaranas to give a sampling of the second pada. So this is how we will do it. Okay, so with that, let us go into the first topic. Okay, so the first topic, the first adhikarana is so the first adhikarana. I'm trying to make sure you also have it. Yeah, you do. Okay. So, for those of you that are following, you go to page 17. Then on the top of the page 17, after the sutras are given up to number 8, it starts with Dvitiya Padasya Prathama Adhikaranam Acharayati. So the first adhikarana of the second pada is now presented. Acharayati means not explained in detail, but introduced, presented. So as I mentioned that what this book does, Bharati Tirtha Muni, is to give each adhikarana in 2 verses. Remember we had mentioned Purva Paksha Siddhanta. This is it. So let's read it. So there are 2 verses on page 17. It says, Manomayo yam sharira isho va pranamanase hridayas thitat praniyastve jive syuhu stena jivagaha. The second one is Shamavakya gatam brahma taddhita adi apekshate pranadi yogas chintartha chintyam brahma prasiddhitaha. Okay, so what it says is, listen, in the Shruti Vakyas, Manomaya Prana Shariraha. So these sentences come, Manomaya Prana Shariraha. In these Shruti Vakyas, is it referring to the Jiva or Parameshwara? This is the Sandeha. This is the doubt. Purva Paksha says, because of the connection of the mind and the prana with the jiva, it refers to the jiva, not to Parameshwara, not to Brahman. Siddhanti says no. It says Manomaya, all the Taddhita and Bahuvrihi Samasa and so on. And then it said Sarvam Khalu Idam Brahma. On these Vakyas, only Brahma can be referred to. Cannot be anything else. These are the 2 sentences. This is now explained in the text by Swamiji, by Bharati Tirtha. Bharati Tirtha Muni now explains these 2 things. So it goes like this. And I will read this and then explain it. So he says, 9:08. We have 7 more minutes. I think we should be able to do quite a bit of this. Chandogyasya Tritiya Adhyaye Shandilya Vidyayam Idam Amnayate Manomayah Pranashariram Bharupaha iti. So he says that in the 3rd chapter of the Chandogya Upanishad, in discussing Shandilya Vidya, this is given in the Vedas. What is given in the Vedas? Manomayaha Pranashariraha Bharupaha. So there is a description of Manomayaha Pranashariraha, that the person that has a mind and a person that has the prana. Prana means the entire set of taking the prana in, distributing it throughout the body and expelling it. Apana, Vyana, Samana, etc. Udana. All that is prana. Means life, functioning life. So Manomayaha Prana Shariraha Bharupaha. Bharupaha means this is all connected to to a conscious being, to the consciousness. So because we can tell that if there is no reflection of consciousness, there is no manaha, there is no prana. When you say I, who thinks? A dead body cannot think. A dead body cannot have the prana. So only a consciousness enables the manomaya. Who has the consciousness? You and I separately. You have a conscious, I am conscious. And so therefore I think, you think, I breathe, you also breathe. So here the Purva Paksha says, Tavat Praptam. So he says that one here is what is established. Manah sambandhaninam jive susampadatvat. He says it is clearly connected to the jiva. Why are you even doubting? And he says then there are other vakyas that establishes manaso vikaro manomayaha iti manasambandhaha prana shariramasya iti prana sambandhaha nacha idam dvitiyam ishvare sumpadam. He says the word Ishvara doesn't come in this. This is all part of the description of the jiva. In fact, in the case of Ishvara, it says apranaha, hi amanaha, shubhraha, iti visheshat. He says that in the Vedas, it clearly says that Ishvara is apranaha, Atma. Atma actually, here Ishvara is Atma. Atma is apranaha. It is not pranasahita. It is, so this is an interesting thing to see when you say, when you say, I am alive. I am alive. Is this a true statement? Is it a true and complete statement? I am alive? So if you ask any person, they'll say yes. When I say I am alive, that means that it's the truth. Otherwise, if I'm not alive, then I cannot say yes. The moment I say yes, that means I'm alive. So to that we say, it may be true, but it is not a complete statement. What? How can you say that? Yes, because you are not just alive, you are. Satyam Jnanam Anantam means the aliveness is a temporary phenomenon. You say your idea of you are alive is wrapped around the fact that life is you. And so to us, the Vedantins, life is a quality. And if the life goes, it doesn't make any difference to me because I'm not predicated on being alive. I am. The consciousness enjoys liveliness, but is not limited by it. It is. So anyway, this is the thing. But here, the Purva Paksha is arguing. So that's all the time we will have. We'll finish at least the Purva Paksha argument. Purva Paksha is arguing that the life belongs to the human being, mind belongs to the human being, and not only that, it specifically says that Atma is aprana, amana, shubhra. तथा एष मे आत्मा अंतर्हृदयः अनीयान् इति श्रूयमानः हृदये अवस्थानम् अनीयस्त्वं च निराधरस्य सर्वगतस्य कथमिति उपपद्यते. So this is a very reasonable argument. We'll go into this in more detail. I don't have time to explain this aniyastvam. But this is reasonable argument. And so in each cases of the adhikaranas, the sandeha, the doubt, is reasonable. It's not as though we say that this is stupid. Why can you even say that's not true? There is a reasonable, in fact, this is how we all believe. This is what is holding us back, that we believe that it belongs to me, I have the mind, and so on. So this, what does the Siddhantin say? That comes with the word brumaha. Vayam brumaha means we say to that. We respond, it means. That we will see from next time. Anyway, so this is how it is analyzed, this is how it is structured, and it'll be interesting to, I think that I hope you are interested, you are with it, and if it becomes to be too heavy, then I understand it, but this is what we will do for a while. At least the structure is established, and then you can be on your own if you want to study it. But to the extent that we will go over that, some clarity will come. And if in addition to the clarity, I think what would be useful is that the entire study of Vedanta, the very entire teaching of Vedanta, has a lot of depth in it. It's not just mumbo-jumbo stuff, you're the Atma, this, that, or the other. But every statement, every vision, every insight has complete justification for it. This is the value of studying uh, Brahma Sutra. Anyway, so we will continue. Om Ashubhani Nirachaste Tanoti Shubhasantatim Smriti Matrena Yat Pumsam Brahmatan Mangalam Param Ati Kalyana Rupatvat Nitya Kalyana Samshrayat Smartranam Varadatvat Chat Brahmatan Mangalam Viduhu Omkaraschatha Shabdascha Dvavetau Brahmanah Pura Kantham Bhitva Viniryatau Tasman Mangilikau Vubhau Om Matha Om Matha Om Matha Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityor Ma Amritam Gamaya Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. For that, some clarity will come with the word Brahma. So Ashish, is it possible to get the Hindi translation of this book? So what I would suggest is that let me see where it was published. Let me see. Okay, so this was published by a matha in Varanasi called Govinda Matha. Govinda Matha. I mean, I can just show you the. So this is the book. And then on one of the pages, which is I'm studying, it talked about who published it. And so it says Prapti Sthanam, where you can get it, is Govinda Matha, Dedhi Neem, Varanasi. So we may need to find out where that is. or perhaps it may be available on Amazon. I don't know. We'll have to check into it. Um, so obviously it's possible to get it from some place. And if worst comes to worst, well, maybe we can make a copy of some of the pages from here and give it to you. I'd be willing to do that. Maybe not the entire book, but some relevant pages. So we would look into that. So anyway, that's what it is. Ah, Chawla Joshi said, yes, it is a Hindi version available on the net, just downloaded. So Chawla, that would be good if you can send the link to me, and I will pass it on to the people, and you can certainly do that. Um, I think that you're right. Unless you are very good in Sanskritam, it'll be difficult to follow that without a translation. But I think that because we are not going to go through the entire book in this one, I will try to make sure that the explanation in the class is very clear to you so that you get a very good sense of it. That's my responsibility, that's my challenge, that's my goal. So we will try to make that. So yes, Chawla, it is not easy to follow the book. I can understand that, but hopefully we will prevail. And these are difficult topics, but this is what we're doing. So yeah, Chawla, please do send it, and we will look into that. All right. Good. So we will hopefully see you next week. All right. Great. Hari Om.